Hi there, this is Janine, co-founder, CEO, and president of Sideline Prep. First, I want to congratulate you on getting one step closer to reaching your dreams of becoming a professional or semi-professional cheerleader. This course, Sideline Interview, will definitely help you become more prepared for the interview round and or the intro speech portion of the upcoming auditions. Before we get started, I want to put a disclaimer out there. Just as a caveat, I want to remind you that all teams are different, and I cannot stress enough the importance of attending prep classes or workshops that are offered by the team that you plan on auditioning for to gain knowledge and to just learn about the team firsthand. The information that I'm going to share with you in general applies to the majority of the teams out there, but you must also do your due diligence in researching the team that you want to audition for to make sure that you understand their specific requirements and what they expect of you during the interview process. But as a general rule, the things that we're going to go over today do apply to the majority of the teams out there. They do hold true for most of the pro and semi-pro teams. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that you have a pen and pad ready so that you can document any questions that come up or so that you can take notes during the session. You can obviously hit pause and rewind and come back to this video later on as well. So our mission at Sideline Prep is to give aspiring professional cheerleaders the knowledge, style, and glamour to walk into professional cheerleading prep classes and auditions with confidence. During this session, we are going to speak mainly about the knowledge piece as it relates to the interview process. But let's go over these three elements of knowledge, style, and glamour. So obviously, the knowledge piece really comes into play to making sure that you understand the actual team that you're auditioning for, that you have polished interview skills, and that you are properly prepared. The style part is more about dance and showmanship, and that you actually have the dance style and dance technique of the organization. And the third element, which sometimes can be the most important element, is the glamour piece. So that's your overall look, which includes obviously your fitness level, your poise, your hair, your makeup, your audition outfit, all of that. So in general, you need to focus on all three of these elements. In this course in particular, we are going to talk about the knowledge of the team, both of the organization and the dance team, as well as your interview skills. Here's a quote by Napoleon Hill that I really like. Think twice before you speak, because your words and influence will plant the seed of either success or failure in the mind of another. So I'm going to talk about this and reiterate this later in this course, but you really need to think before you speak during the interview process. You want to take your time because your words will influence how the judges appear or how the judges think of you and how you appear to the judges. Also, not only what you say is important, but what you think is even more important. I don't know if you've had the chance to read The Secret, but I absolutely love this book. It's all centered around the law of attraction. So during every moment of every day, you're basically talking to yourself, and you're either talking yourself into success or out of success because your thoughts are extremely powerful. So part of being successful is not only thinking that you will succeed, but it's also setting up a plan of action so that you can succeed. So you really want to make sure that you plan. And remember that what you say really does matter. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So this is one thing that I want you to keep in mind throughout your preparation process to get ready for prep classes and auditions. Preparation is very, very, very important. During the Sideline Smarts course as well as the Sideline Prep course, we go into detail of how important it is to prepare and what the elements are for preparing. At Sideline Prep, we follow the PREP model, the PREP. And this is basically a cycle. First, you want to set up a plan of action. Figure out exactly what you need to do to accomplish the goals that you have set. Then you're going to react to that plan. So you're actually going to implement the plan. Then you need to evaluate and monitor your success and your progress. If during that evaluation you find that, hey, I need to still work on this element, or, oh no, I've uncovered something else I need to work on, then you're going to go back to the plan phase and update that plan to incorporate additional elements that you need to work on. And then you basically start again. You plan, you react, you evaluate, and then the moment of truth is you perform. So you actually go to the auditions, you go to prep classes, and you perform in front of the judges, other current team members, and give 110%. So let's go through this prep model as it relates to the interview or speech and intro portion of auditions. So planning. First of all, like I said, you've got to determine a goal. So what is your goal for the upcoming audition season? Then, based on that goal, you need to conduct a lot of research. You want to determine what your opportunities for improvement are and what your biggest fears are when it comes to the interview process. Then you're going to develop a plan of action. So you want to make sure that you overcome the fears, that you address your opportunities for improvement, which is just a nice way of saying weaknesses. And you want to make sure that you include due dates and that you include specific actions of the things that you need to do. So during this course, we're going to mainly focus on the research and the actions that you need to take based on that research. So what do you need to know? Let's go back to thinking about the knowledge piece of knowledge, style, and glamour. So first of all, you want to brush up on current events. So watch the news, watch CNN, and make sure that you know what's going on in the world as well as in the local community. You never know, you could get questions about just general current events. You also need to research the team that you want to audition for. So for example, the NFL would be considered the league. So you want to get some information on the league. But then let's say the team that you're auditioning for are the Houston Texans. So you want to make sure that you have an understanding of how the Texans did this past season. You also obviously want to research the dance team, the cheerleading team that you're auditioning for, and specifically what are the audition requirements as it relates to the interview portion. Is there an interview round? Are you going to have to deliver a speech or an intro? What's the format of the interview? What are the potential questions that they could ask? So these are all the things that you want to research. In addition to that, you have to get the look. So you want to make sure that for the glamour piece that you know what attire you need to wear to the actual interview portion of the auditions. So let's talk a little bit more about researching when it comes to the actual team. You want to make sure that you know the basic facts about the sport itself. So if you are auditioning for an NFL pro cheer dance team, then you need to know a little bit about the NFL. Same thing if it's an NBA dance team, or maybe you are going out for an NHL dance team, or even any type of semi-pro team. You want to know a little bit about the history of the organization. So did that team go to any Super Bowls? And if so, in what years? Who are the greats of all time? So who are those players out there that will always be remembered? Those players from that team that maybe made the Hall of Fame. And then you want to make sure that you just know the organization facts. So what the mission, the vision, and the values of the sports team are. Do they support certain causes or charities? Who their owner is? The head coach, both the defensive and the offensive coaches. What was their record this past season? What was the outcome of the prior season? Who were the top or the key players on the roster? Who's their mascot? What are the team colors? I could go on and on and on, but basically you need to make sure that you know about the team. You can do this obviously by looking up things on the internet. You can watch sports shows. You can get a For Dummies book, for example, on the NFL or on football, basketball, just to make sure that you understand the basic information about the sport as well as the team. You're also going to want to do research on the dance or the cheer team, obviously. So, what's the history of the dance team? How long have they been around? Did they start when the team started? Or did they maybe come a couple of years after? Was there a change in the name or the colors of the organization? For example, the Redskins cheerleaders used to be called the Redskinettes. So that's something kind of interesting that you could potentially weave into one of your answers for a question that you might receive. What about the colors of the organization? Did those change? For example, the Washington Wizards, when I first made their dance team, the colors were a blue, black, and gold and white. Well, my last year on the team, the colors changed to red, white, and blue. So that's something else, just having that knowledge and having that in your back pocket. You could also get some information on alumni cheerleaders. So if there are any cheerleaders in particular that have been around for a long time or that you once met years and years ago, you could have their names in your back pocket to potentially use as an answer as well. What are some just general dance team facts? Do they have pretty much the same mission, vision, and values of the organization? Do they support similar causes and charities? Where do they hold a lot of their appearances? What are the organizations that they support the most? So all of this information are definitely things that you want to know. And then you want to research specific information about the interview process. So maybe you can find out interview tips that the organization has put online or even find video footage. You never know. So where can you look? Obviously, you can go to workshops and prep classes and ask around and find out from current team members what the process was like the prior year. You can go on the organization's website if they have any social media outlets like Facebook or Twitter. You can obviously ask current cheerleaders at these workshops and prep classes. And then obviously the internet is like a huge, huge source of information. So all you literally have to do is go into Google and type a couple of words into your Google search and you will likely find something. So then once you do all of this research, then it's pretty much time to react and to implement your plan and start acting on all of the research. So once you have that plan, now I've got to go out and do all of that research. What am I going to do? Let's find out basic facts. So I'm basically doing this for you when it comes to the NFL. So let's start there. The NFL is the National Football Association. There are 32 teams, so you have the AFC and the NFC. So the American Football Conference and the National Football Conference. And you have 8 divisions total. So the AFC has AFC North, South, East, and West. And then the NFC has NFC North, South, East, and West. So that's how they come up with the 8 divisions. You want to make sure that you actually know which conference your team is in. So, for example, the Redskins and Dallas are within the NFC East conference and division. However, the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts are part of the AFC South. So that's just something that you want to find out about the team that you're auditioning for. For NFL football, there are 4 15-minute quarters. You have 2-minute warnings as well as a halftime. So the 2-minute warnings normally occur at the end of each half. So at football games, cheerleaders normally dance the pregame. They'll dance during certain timeouts, maybe 1 per quarter. And then they also normally dance at the 2-minute break right before the end of the half. You also want to familiarize yourself with the game itself as far as the point structure. So a touchdown, I know that you all know this, is 6 points. The extra point after the touchdown is worth 1 point. A field goal, so if they're not able to make it into the end zone for a touchdown, they may just attempt a field goal. That's 3 points. And then a safety is 2 points. So a safety is if we are able to tackle the quarterback in our end zone, we would get 2 points for that. So just making sure that you're familiar with the point structure. You also want to make sure that you are aware of the number of players that are on the field. So For offense, there are 11 players on the field, and then when it switches over to defense, there are 11 players. And then last but not least, make sure you're comfortable with the positions and that you kind of understand the difference between the offensive positions as well as the defensive positions. So for example, on the offense, you have an offensive line, and those positions are the center, the offensive guard, and the offensive tackle. Then you have backs and receivers. So within the backs and the receivers, you have your quarterback, your running back, your wide receiver, and your tight end. Now, on the opposite side, the defensive side, you have your defensive line. So you have your defensive tackle and your defensive end. And then you also have linebackers, and you normally have a middle and outside linebacker. And then you have defensive backs. So the defensive backs are your safety, your cornerback, your nickel back, and your dime back. So you may not necessarily need to know the details of all of that, but you want to make sure that you're familiar with the positions. And here's another little fun fact about the NFL. There are 28 states that do not have an NFL team. However, all of the other states do, which is kind of neat. So now let's go on to the NBA. So the NBA is the National Basketball Association. There are 30 teams within the NBA, and it's divided into Eastern and Western conferences, and there are 6 divisions. So within the Eastern Conference, the divisions include the Atlantic, Central, and Southeast divisions. And then on the Western side, you have the Northwest, Pacific, and Southwest divisions. There are 82 regular games in the regular season. So for a home game, as far as how many games girls have to actually dance at, there are about 41 to 42 game season, believe it or not. It's a very long season. It's a lot of games. So you basically run from October, mid to end of October, to April. And then if you make it to the playoffs, then you're considered to go into the postseason. And that's normally from April till June. There are 4 quarters, and each quarter is 12 minutes in length, and there's also a halftime. The point structure for basketball, a regular basket is 2 points. A free throw is 1 point. So if you're fouled and you have to go to the free throw line, it's 1 point. And then the 3-point shot, obviously, is 3 points. So there are 5 players that are on the court. And one difference between, basketball and football, for basketball, all players play both offense and defense. So you don't have people coming in and out based on if you're offense or defense. So for the positions for basketball, I'm sure you've all heard of people saying, oh, he's a number 1, or, he's a number 5, he's our big man, that type of thing. But your point guard is your number 1. That's the person who normally, calls the plays. He's organizing the plays, coming down from the opposite end of the court normally. You have your shooting guard, which is your number 2 position, normally the person that is a really good shooter, hits those 3-point shots. You have a small forward, which is considered the 3 position, a power forward, which is the number 4, and then you have your center, your number 5 position, and you've probably heard this referred to as your big man. This person is normally the tallest person, the person that's going in for the dunks, and is a very strong center. So those are just some of the things that, once you come up with your plan as far as what you need to research, then you're going to actually go and conduct that research. You're going to react to your plan. And this is just some, information now that you don't necessarily have to do if you happen to be auditioning for the NFL or the NBA. So how do you, evaluate yourself during this whole interview process? So one way is to conduct a mock interview. So you want to document any potential questions that could come up. Maybe you could use flashcards, so have a question on one side and then the answer on the other. So all of the information about the NFL and the NBA that we just went over, you could put on flashcards. You also want to practice standing in front of a mirror and answer questions, and then also practice sitting, because you do not know necessarily how the interview is going to be. During your research, though, once you react and you start researching, you may find out, oh, well, normally we just do introductions and speeches, and you come out in groups and you're standing in front of a panel of judges. Or, you know what, we have formal interviews during our audition process, and you come in and you are seated during the interview process, just like a job interview. So hopefully you'll find out what the process will be. You can also ask your friends to help you with the mock interview. So give them the questions and then you practice responding. If you happen to have a fear of public speaking and you just do not do good with interviews, then you might want to consider joining Toastmasters or some sort of other networking type group or club to help you with public speaking. But you definitely need to practice. You need to evaluate and monitor your progress as far as interview skills. Then the final part of prep is the perform piece. So now we just have to get ready for interviews. We're good to go. We're prepared. We've done our research. We've implemented our research and reacted on it, and we've evaluated and monitored our progress, and now we are ready for the actual interview. So you're definitely going to want to lay out your attire ahead of time. You're going to want to review all of your Q&As before you head to your interview. Grab those flashcards, go through them one more time. You want to make sure that you pack the night before. So you have to have the appropriate attire, which you need to ask what it is ahead of time. The appropriate shoes, obviously. Any research, your notes, your flashcards you want to take with you. If they require a professional or dance resume, you want to make sure that you have copies of that available. And sometimes that's even good to just distribute and hand out even if they don't ask for it. It really does, create a great impression. And then you want to have one or two questions to ask them at the end of the interview. In just about every interview that I've been in, the last question that they ask me is, do you have any questions for us? And you always want to have questions, or at least a question to ask. And we're going to go over this a little bit later. And then you obviously want to get a good night's rest. Now, in the Sideline Smarts virtual web session, we do provide a complete packing list, not just for the interview round, but for any round of the audition process. But this will basically hold true for the interview round. So let's talk about the interview round. So here's a typical audition day. In Sideline Smarts, I go into detail with each of these elements, but the thing that I want you to note here is that your intro or your speech or the actual interview could appear just about anywhere throughout the audition process. So if you have to do intro or speech like that general introduction or even a potential quick one or two interview question, it could be first thing, the very first round of the audition process. Or you might find that it could come later on. So maybe after you've learned choreography and there have been a couple of cuts, you may then have a quick interview, or you might have to do your introduction or your speech later on during the interview day. Then after you kind of make it through preliminaries, and let's say it's a multiple day audition, then you might find interviews coming up during like a boot camp week or your final week. And then you could also see them obviously during the actual finals. There's really no way to tell, but you do want to research and you do want to investigate and find out how it is for the particular team that you're auditioning for. For the teams that I've been a part of, normally that first round you have to do an introduction or a speech, a very brief hello, and that's the first round. And then we normally would freestyle, and then guess what? There's a cut. And then there was no formal interview process after that. I've also done it where you've done the intro and the speech that first round, and then there were a couple of quick questions after you did your intro speech. I've also been involved in as a judge where there were formal interviews and a group of girls came out and each person was asked two questions in a group. There's also been a scenario my last year auditioning for the Wizard Girls where as part of the audition day, the last round was each girl went to a different table and we kind of rotated in front of judges and each judge asked us a couple of questions. So you just never know what it's actually going to look like. So you really want to make sure that you ask. So let's just talk about that again, some of the potential interview scenarios. It could be one-on-one with you and just the coach or the director. It could be one-on small group. So it could be you and then it could be a small group of either like the coach and the director, upper management, or even some of the current cheerleaders, maybe a couple of the captains or former cheerleaders. There could be a panel of judges. So the judges could consist of former cheerleaders, current cheerleaders, captains, maybe dance professionals or choreographers from the area, or from other sports teams. There could be management there. You could have fans, season ticket holders, members of the military. Any number of people could serve as the panel of judges. And obviously the size could vary. If there is a crowd there, you want to play to that crowd. You want to interact some with the crowd, make eye contact, not just with the judges, but also people in the crowd. Because if it's an environment where the crowd is able to interact and hoot and holler, you want to make sure that you're able to connect with them as well. Like I mentioned before, you could be sitting down during the interview, or it could be a situation where you're standing up and you're in either a group of people, a group of candidates, or you're by yourself. So you really want to make sure, like I said before, that you really research this. If you are in a group with other candidates, you still want to make eye contact with the judges while you're waiting to be asked questions. You also want to pay attention to the questions that are being asked of the other girls, because you never know, they could ask you the same question. Like I said before, the interview portion could be a separate round within the main auditions, or it might be after they've narrowed it down to like the semi-finals or the finals, and they actually schedule a time and date for you to come in for your interviews. So why are these interviews so important, and why are teams starting to move toward doing formal interviews? Well, they realize that their team basically represents the organization in the community. So you are no longer Suzanne or Lisa or Janine. You are now a Redskins cheerleader, or a Houston Texans cheerleader, or a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. You no longer really have a unique identity, because you now represent that team. You basically are a brand ambassador for the organization. You are instantly a role model for fans, for younger children that are in the community. You have to be polished and poised when you interact with anyone, especially when you're in the uniform. They want to make sure that during this interview process that they are able to determine if you're ambitious, if you're career driven, and if you're intelligent. You have to be able to convey the spirit and the mission of the organization through your speaking and one-on-one interaction with other people, and through your delivery and your poise. You have to be polished and professional, yet you need to be upbeat and happy and fun to be around. And overall, they just want to make sure that if you are able to get through the interview process with them, it's an indication of how you'll be able to handle yourself with the media, fans, and upper management. So it really is a very important part of the process. So let's first talk about if you have to do a quick or brief speech or an introduction. What are the judges actually looking for? Obviously, your speaking ability. They want to make sure that you articulate well and that you have good grammar. They're also looking for clarity of speech, and if you have any unique attributes that you're able to share during your intro. They can assess your personality just from a sentence or two. The judges are also looking to find out what your story is, and they want to remember you. So they're really trying to assess your rememberability. This is really your opportunity to be remembered and to make a great first impression. During this speech, especially if you're in a group with the other candidates, you want to step forward when you speak, and you want to make sure that you make eye contact with all the judges and that you scan them. You also want to make sure that you watch your posture, which we will discuss in a little bit. For the interview round, the judges are looking for, in addition to everything that I just stated when it comes to your speech and your introduction, they are also trying to assess your ability to think under pressure and your ability to handle random scenarios, random questions, random things that fans will come up to you and say to you during the course of a game or at a promo. They want to figure out what your personal desires, aspirations, and goals are. So they may ask you questions to uncover that. They also want to uncover the real you. So when they're able to actually speak and interact with you on that level, they're going to be able to find out so much more about who you are as a person. They're also going to test your knowledge of current events, the sport, the league, and the team. So you really have to make sure that you do that research. This is your opportunity to show who you are inside. And one thing that I just want to remind you is when they ask you questions, it could be a yes or no type of question. You want to make sure that you don't just give one word answers. So anytime they ask you a question, they obviously want you to expand on the question and say yes, and then maybe give some examples, or no, and then expand on that. So let's get into a little bit more detail about your introduction and your speech. So here are some tips. First of all, like I said before, you want to make sure that you articulate your words extremely well. You want to use proper grammar, and you want to try to show your personality through your speech. You want to make sure that you're funny, but you don't want to be silly. There is a difference. You want to be playful, but not ditzy. Again, there is a difference. You also want to be short and to the point, and remember that it's not your life story. You want to make sure that your intro is about 30 seconds in length or shorter. So as you practice it, you want to pull out a stopwatch and you want to time yourself. So how do you craft your speech? You want to make sure that you're able to show your personality through your words and through your delivery. You want to be brief, yet give them something real about yourself. So this again goes into, you don't want to be ditzy and come across as a ditz. You really want to come across as someone real, unique, and intelligent. You want to tell the judges something unique about yourself and something that's going to make you stand out and make them remember you. And you really want to, if at all possible, try to make a connection to the organization. So earlier we talked about researching the organization, what the mission, the vision, the values are, what types of charities and promotional events they do. So for example, if you find out that the cheerleading organization goes overseas in support of the USO or the DOD on appreciation or performance tours, and if you happen to also volunteer for the USO or DOD, or maybe you work for a part of our government or part of our military, you're going to want to make sure that you weave that into your speech. Let's say that the organization is really heavy on doing charity and appearances with children and mentoring. If you happen to also be involved in some of those activities, you want to make sure that you mention that. Another example, a lot of the NBA is really into getting fit, so they have a lot of get fit initiatives. If you are a personal trainer, or let's say you used to at one time be 50 pounds heavier than what you are today, and now you're really on this fitness and nutrition crave, you can talk about how you overcame that barrier and how you're helping others to do the same thing. So you just want to make sure that you make the connection some way to the organization. Last but not least, you want to make sure that you're honest. And I hate to even have to say this, but you want to be truthful. There have been girls in the past that, in an effort to be remembered and in an effort to stand out, in an effort to make the judges laugh, they told fibs. And that's just not cool. So you want to make sure that you are truthful in whatever you say. So let's figure out in crafting your speech how you can actually stand out. First of all, you want to think about anything that is unique to you. And you have to kind of sit back and really think about this, because sometimes because it's you, you may not feel like it's unique. But if the majority of the population hasn't experienced it or hasn't accomplished it or can't say it about themselves, then 9 times out of 10, it is something unique. If you have a connection to the military, this is huge. You want to make sure that you mention that. With most sports in general and just within the United States, there's a huge focus on supporting our active duty personnel, the family members of active duty, our veterans. It's just a huge focus right now within the United States. So any connection that you have, you want to mention. Anything that's different or reputable or noteworthy about your occupation. So if you are a doctor or a lawyer, or maybe you are an analyst or a researcher, or if you work for the Peace Corps, or maybe you work on Capitol Hill, anything that's just different, you're going to want to make sure that you incorporate that into your intro as well. If you're heavily involved in community service, that's a plus. Go ahead and mention it. If you happen to speak multiple languages fluently, make sure that you incorporate that as well. And then if you have any talents, so if you can sing, if you're a comedian, you're just really good at jokes, maybe you want to incorporate jokes. If you can do any types of weird tricks and you can demonstrate that to the judges without grossing them out, then maybe you want to incorporate that as well. One of our clients, and I thought it was really cool, for the Redskins, we actually still have a fight song, believe it or not. And part of her speech, she actually turned that fight song, the Hail to the Redskins, into almost, she did her own rendition of it, and it was like an opera version of Hail to the Redskins. And it was just really, really cool hearing her sing Hail to the Redskins during her speech. Another thing you want to really make sure that you do is practice your speech over and over and over and over again. You should never mess up your speech. If you have it well thought out and planned and you basically know what you want to say, then you've got to practice it. So here are the main 4 elements of your speech. You want to be remembered by your speech. You want to be unique. You have to articulate your speech and deliver it precisely, and you want it to be brief. So like I said before, about 30 seconds. So let's do it. Let's go ahead and start crafting your speech. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to jot down the 3 most unique characteristics, traits, experiences, talents, whatever you can think of about yourself. I also want you to jot down the 3 most impressive professional accomplishments. And if you don't have a job yet, then this could be academic accomplishments as well. And then your 3 most impressive personal accomplishments. So just things that you're extremely proud of that you've done that aren't necessarily connected to your professional or educational life. So this will give you basically your top 9 list. Then I want you to narrow this list down to a top 2. So if you need to go ahead and push pause right now, feel free to do that. But I definitely want you to think through this and document it. So your 3 most unique characteristics, traits, experiences, or talents, your 3 most impressive educational or professional accomplishments, and your 3 most impressive personal accomplishments. And then take that top 9 list and try to pull out your top 2. So your intro speech is basically going to be made up of these items or these elements. First of all, you're going to greet your audience. And you might want to obviously state your name and where you're from or where you currently live. Then you're going to want to touch on your background a little bit. So what school you graduated from, your current profession. If you're about 5 years removed from school, then you don't necessarily need to mention that. If you're a recent graduate, then obviously it's worth noting. If you have something unique about your dance experience, then I would mention it. So if you, learned under Alan Ailey, or if you have literally been dancing since you were 3 or 4 years old or something like that, you just want to make sure that you're careful on what you mention for your dance experience, because you don't want to just say, oh, I just love to dance so much, because everyone is going to probably mention something about their love of dance. So you really want to make sure that if you do single this out, that it is a unique attribute as far as your dance background. Then you're going to want to weave in your top 2 unique things about yourself within your speech. And then you're going to do a closing or a thank you to kind of wrap it all up. So let me give you 3 examples. Hi, my name is Tiffany. I'm 37 years old and am from Canada. I absolutely love to dance, but I'm not just a lover, I'm a fighter. Believe it or not, I've been in 30 fights. Hi there, I'm Sabrina, born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I have 20 tattoos in places that you can't visibly see right now. Hello, all. I'm Emily. I've been a dancer my entire life, and making this team would absolutely mean the world to me because I have literally been dancing since I was 13 years old. And, I used to be really bad back then, but I am so much better now. And, I used to go to all the games and see the dancers and the cheerleaders. And then 2 minutes later, all right, thank you so much for your time. Now, obviously, these are 3 examples of things that you do not want to do for obvious reasons. So stay away from these scenarios. The first one, obviously, mentioning that she's 37 years old. If she's 37 and looks 27, then it's okay to do that. But for a general rule of thumb, if you're a little on the older side, there's nothing wrong with that, but I would not necessarily put it in your speech. It is pretty cool that she's from Canada. That's unique about her. But we obviously don't want to know that she was in 30 fights. That's not a positive thing at all. The second one, she talked about her tattoos and how she had 20 of them that are in places that cannot be seen. That's also not cool. And then in the last example, it was just too long. So you don't want to go on and on and on and on. And she also just talked about dance. And she mentioned that she had been dancing since she was 13. So it may not be very long, because if she's, maybe 18, then that's really, she hasn't been dancing for long at all. Or if she's a recent graduate of college, she hasn't been dancing for very long. So stay away from those types of speeches. So let's give some examples of some good ones. Buenos dias, me llamo Susan. I was born and raised in Spain and am fluent in Spanish. I'm a recent resident of Washington, D.C., where I enjoy working on Capitol Hill. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to the rest of the audition process. Short, sweet, to the point. She's showing here that she speaks another language and that she is fluent in Spanish and that she works on Capitol Hill. That's pretty impressive. A word of caution. If you do speak another language and you claim to be fluent in that language, you need to be prepared to have a conversation with a judge that could potentially also be fluent in that language. So be careful. This happened to a young lady who said that she was fluent in German. She learned enough to be able to start her speech in German, then she translated it in English and then closed out her speech. And then one of the judges spoke to her in German and she did not know what he was saying and she could not respond. So you can only imagine she was cut. So please be careful with this one. The second example. Good day, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I recently graduated with honors from Yale, where I obtained a degree in marketing. I am currently working toward my MBA at Georgetown University. While it sounds like I am all work and no play, my favorite pastimes are playing Twister and going fishing with my family. Oh, and by the way, I hold the fishing champion title for the Smith family. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Even though, obviously it's very, very impressive that she graduated from Yale and she's now at Georgetown University, she also shows that she's down to earth and she likes to have fun as well, and that she loves fishing. Not a lot of females out there enjoy fishing, so that's pretty cool that she was able to incorporate that into this speech as well. The third example. Happy Saturday to everyone. I'm Janine with a G, not a J. I'm a former professional cheerleader for the NBA, but my heart is with the NFL. I hope to one day wear the burgundy and gold. When I'm not rooting on my favorite football team, I'm the director for a nonprofit organization that provides food, housing, education, and training to our United States veterans. So this one is kind of neat because instead of just the general, hello or, how's it going or hi, it's happy Saturday to everyone. So that was neat. She's Janine, or I'm Janine with a G. A lot of people assume that my name is, starts with a J. So that's just something different to throw in there. I show that I do have professional cheerleading dance experience, but I put the focus back on the team that I'm currently auditioning for. So I talk about how, the NFL is extremely important. And then I'm not really the director for a nonprofit, but obviously This is just an example, and I would only include this if it were true. But the reason I included this is to show you that here I'm pulling in my support, love, and dedication to our military. So again, you want to make sure that you stand out and that you will be remembered and that you're showing how you would be a great ambassador to the organization. And everything, again, has to be truthful and honest. So hopefully I've given you enough information, enough examples where you will be able to craft your introduction, your speech. I would go ahead and start working on this now. I would not wait until they tell you definitely need it. At some point, even if it's just during an interview process, they may just ask a general question like, tell me about yourself. And this would be a great way to use your speech to answer that question. So now let's go ahead and move into interview tips. So obviously, I've said this a million times, so it's a common theme here. You want to make sure that you are prepared and that you do your research and that you practice your responses to different questions. You have to be on time to your interview. In one scenario, a candidate arrived 15 minutes late to her call time for her interview. She was frazzled. She didn't perform well in the interview, and it was an indication to the coaches that that could potentially be behavior that she would show during the season, and she was cut after the interview round. You want to make sure that you walk into your interview, obviously, with a smile. You want to walk in empty-handed, so you do not want to have your cell phone. You don't want to have a drink in your hand. You don't want to have your purse. Hopefully, there's a place where you can put all of that before you go into the interview. You can have a resume if it's required. So if you need to, you want to make sure that you have your resume and that you present that. And even if it's not required, if you have a professional or dance resume that's extremely well put together and organized and is impressive with content, you may want to offer that regardless once you walk in. You also want to make sure, obviously, that you stay focused throughout the entire interview process. If you give an answer that you're like, oh no, why did I say that? You just want to leave it. Let it be and stay focused on the current question. Try not to, worry too much about an answer maybe that wasn't the best. You want to know your own application or resume. So obviously, most dance teams, you have to fill out an actual application to audition. You want to make sure that you know what you put on that application and that you can speak to it. You also want to make sure that you know the dates on your resume and the credentials that you included on your resume, and you've got to be able to speak to these items. You have to dress appropriately. So this is part of that research. You have to make sure that you know what the attire should be. In some cases, especially if it's a group type interview, you may have to just wear your audition attire. In other cases, they may want you to be in a professional suit. So you want to wear just a basic clean cut suit and then add your own flair and style. But you want to be careful that you're not too trendy with your suit. You want to be professional. You could also do business casual. That could be a requirement as well. And then, like I said, they could say, oh, you can be trendy. You can wear jeans and a top, whatever you want to do. Just don't overdo it on the trendy side. So here's some interview tips. Obviously, these are pretty much the same, just like with any professional job interview. You want to make eye contact with the people that are asking you the questions. You want to just take your time, take a deep breath. Don't rush. You really want to make sure that you think before you speak. Answer the question in a complete sentence. This is also a great stall tactic. If they ask you a question and you're not quite sure of the response, if you answer it in a complete sentence, then it's going to buy you a couple of seconds at the beginning to be able to kind of figure out what your answer is going to be. You want to keep your answer succinct, to the point, and focused. You want to stay on topic, and you want to make sure that you actually answer the question that is asked. You don't want to ramble, and you want to make sure that you assess the judge's body language, because that can tell you a lot. You can tell if they're irritated, annoyed, or if they're ready to move on. So make sure that you pay attention to their body language. And like I said, you definitely want to stay on topic. So make sure that you really answer the question that was asked. You want to have fun, but you want to come across extremely intelligent as well. You want to be memorable in your responses. You want to make a great impression on them. And you want to turn a weakness question into something that is positive. So, for example, if they ask you, what is one thing that you really need to work on as a person? Maybe your response could be something like, well, the one thing that I feel I need to work on the most is that I'm a perfectionist, and sometimes maybe I just need to chill out. Being a perfectionist can sometimes get in the way of me completing tasks on time because I always want to make sure that everything that I do is extremely perfect. But on the flip side, being a perfectionist is great because everything that I turn in, everything that I deliver is always accepted, and my clients are always extremely pleased. So you're admitting that maybe you're, anal about some things, but you're able to show how that's also a positive thing. You want to be prepared to answer any type of scenario-based questions. So, for example, what if you are heading to a game and there's an accident on the beltway and you know that you're going to be late? How would you handle that situation? So you've got to be able to answer any type of scenario-based questions. And then you want to have some questions ready to ask them. Like I said before, at the end of almost every interview that I've been a part of, the interviewee is asked, hey, do you have any questions for us? And you always want to have a response for that. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some questions that you could ask? For example, what's a typical week look like in the life of a pro cheerleader with your organization? What's the most important quality of a member of your team? Based on what you have seen so far, what do I need to work on prior to finals? And then how are team members selected to participate in the community service activities that you do? So all of these questions show that you have a genuine interest in the team and community service, and you really want to know more about the organization. These are all great follow-up questions to ask. And I'm going to give you some that you should not ask. So here are some that you want to stay away from. How much do the cheerleaders get paid? It's not about the money, ladies. It's about the experience. Do not ask this question. If I make the team, how many practices am I able to miss without being penalized? Oh my gosh, what? This is already sending a flag that you plan on missing practices and they do not want you to miss practice. Again, another example, what happens if I miss a practice or a game? Do I have to attend all of the games? Of course you do. That's what your contract states. You need to be present at all games. How can I become a captain? So this is already showing you haven't even made the team yet, but you already want to know how you can be a captain. So you definitely want to stay away from that question. How do you all decide who goes on the calendar trip? It's not about the calendar trip, ladies, again. Does my weight really matter? So for obvious reasons, these are questions that you obviously just don't want to ask. Stick to the prior slide with the other questions. Let's talk a little bit about your presentation and your delivery. So if you have to go in and stand up during either the interview round or even during your speech or introduction, you want to stand with confidence and you want to make sure that you smile, obviously. You need to stand tall. You want to have your shoulders back and down, your neck straight, and your chin slightly up. You want to make sure that you suck in because you really want your midsection to look great. So you want to flex your stomach muscles and if needed, tuck your butt under because that really helps to show the definition in your stomach. You want to angle your lower body at about a 45-degree angle and you want to turn your torso toward the judges. You want to make sure that you have a toe pop and you could have one hand on your hip and one arm hanging down. This really helps to accentuate the curves in your body. So here's an example of a stance where, you want your body to look great. You have one hand up and one arm down. And this is kind of what you would do for your holding, when you're holding and waiting in front of the judges, or when you're getting ready to deliver your speech or your introduction, or if during the interview round you have to stand up. When you are asked a question, you want to make sure that you use your hands and that you show your personality and that you're not stiff. So you would come out of the stance and really make eye contact and address all of the judges. If you are sitting down during your interview, when you first walk in, you want to obviously say hello to the judges and greet them. You want to shake hands with the judges if possible. So before you sit down, walk up to their table and shake hands. Give them a nice, firm handshake. Then you want to sit down gracefully. You want to cross your legs at your ankles. I'm sure you all have all heard this from either your mom or your grandma. Cross at your ankles. And then you want to ensure that your skirt is pulled down if you happen to have a skirt on. You want to sit upright and have very, very good posture. You don't want to kind of lean back in the chair and get too comfortable. And you want to make sure that you lean forward slightly to show engagement in the interview process. And then you just place your hands in your lap and make sure that you're not too squirmy. So sit down and just be still. Obviously, you can use your hands and you want to smile and you want to have a very relaxed poise about yourself, but you don't want to move around too much because that shows that you're nervous. When you exit, thank the judges obviously for their time. You want to shake their hands one last time if possible. You obviously want to smile as you leave. So this is just basic information, basic tips for, the interview process. So now let's get into the questions. So what types of questions could you potentially get? You could get you questions. So they really are focused on you. They want to get to know you. So very specific questions about you. These should be pretty easy to answer because you know yourself better than anyone else. You could get some commitment level questions. It's very important that the coaches know that you're committed to the team, both in time and within your heart. You might get some questions, like I said before, about the team, both the organization as well as the dance team. And you could also get scenario-based questions. So now we're going to go over just some typical questions that might come up in each one of these situations. So let's talk about the you questions. You could just get the general, tell us about yourself. And like I said before, this is a great opportunity. If you've prepared your introduction speech, this is a great opportunity to use that speech to answer this question. Why do you want to be a, whatever the name of the team is, cheerleader? This is one that almost comes up undoubtedly. Here you would want to discuss what attracted you to the team. Maybe it's the reputation, how the current girls, present themselves. Maybe it was a childhood dream because you used to attend the games and see the dancers. Or maybe you just love dancing and being around other ladies and that you really love the dance team environment. Whatever the reason is, you want to make sure that you're very clear about it and that you think about why you want to be a cheerleader. They do not want ladies that are coming out just for the glitz and the glamour of it all, or because they want to go on the calendar trip and be in the calendar, or because they're trying to find a pro football player as a husband. That's not why you should want to be a cheerleader. And if those are the reasons, then you really want to reassess yourself and really rethink this whole process, because that type of stuff does come out and people can see through that. Why do you deserve to be a part of the team? What would you add to the team? And in what ways would you contribute to the team? So you really want to think about this. What are some things that would make you an attribute to the team? Maybe it's, that you are a natural leader, but you also know how to follow. Maybe it's your organization skills, or that you are a true team player in the sense of if someone is not able to fulfill their promotion or charity events, that you're able to step in and help them out. You really want to think about how you can add value to the team and how you would be a great ambassador and a great fit. What is your best trait and how could it be a benefit to our team? And then let's say you're going to be a rookie. So they may say you'll be a rookie this year. And I noticed on your application that you were a captain for 3 years on the last dance team that you were a part of. How would you do in the role of being just a follower? So you really need to think through that. Are you able to step down and take off that leader hat and truly just be a team member? I was a Redskins cheerleader for 8 years, and over half of that, I was a leader in some capacity, either as a co-captain or a captain. And I took a year off and then decided to audition for the Washington Wizards. And I went in as a rookie, and I had to literally change my mindset, change how much I spoke up, and just change how I interacted with other team members, because now I was just that. I was a team member. And being a team member is just as important as being a captain. But it was a little bit of an adjustment, but luckily I thought about it before my first day of practice, and I felt very comfortable in that role. And actually, it was nice. It was nice to just be able to be a follower. It was nice to not have to call out all of the routines and make all of the decisions and get everything organized. There's a lot of pressure on captains. So for me, it was actually nice to just be and, enjoy my experience as a rookie. So here are some other you questions. What is your biggest accomplishment to date? So remember, I did say that they want to understand who you are as a person and what you've accomplished both professionally, academically, or personally. So you have to be prepared to answer that. What qualities do you possess that would make you a good team member? What do you need to work on the most as a person? So I gave this as an example before. If you get a question like this, try to make sure that you're able to turn it into something positive. Last year, you auditioned and made it to the second round. What did you do differently this year from last year to prepare? So hopefully you learned from your experience the prior year, and we go over this a lot in the Sideline Smarts class about how you really need to assess your performance and really research and understand and ask what it is that you need to work on, so that you then have that next year to work on your opportunities for improvement and come back in that following year looking even better. So just be prepared to answer this type of question if this falls into your scenario. One thing to just be careful of, and it may not be an issue for a lot of teams, but certain professions, let's say, for example, if you worked at Hooters in a prior life, or if maybe you were a professional dancer at a men's or gentlemen's club, these are some things that I personally would not mention. I would not include them on my resume, and I would not bring them up during the interview round. So just really be careful. Just as sometimes cheerleaders get stereotyped as being ditzy or, not having it all upstairs. Unfortunately, certain professions also get stereotyped. So just keep that in mind. Then you could also get these types of commitment questions. What is your commitment level to this team? Are you able to handle the schedule and the demands of the team? Are you willing to relocate so that you can make it to practices and games if you happen to be an out-of-towner? Do you have dependable transportation? What other obligations do you have that could interfere with your duties as a professional cheerleader? And are you willing to change your look? So we go over this, some during the Sideline Smarts class, but if someone asks you to change the color of your hair or, to change your audition outfit or anything, are you willing to make that change or make that adjustment? Basically, once you sign the contract of being a pro cheerleader, you have to be willing to do whatever it is that they ask you to do. And then are you willing to be a part of the promo team or the ambassador team or the non-dancing team? So in all of these scenarios with these type of commitment questions, you really want to be thoughtful in your response. So let's just kind of start at the top of this. So your commitment level, obviously you need to be 110% committed and dedicated to the team and to all of its obligations. Are you able to handle the schedule? You need to have thought about this prior to getting into auditions. If you are auditioning for an NBA team, you have to understand that you're going to have 40 plus games, and that does not include the practices and the promotions, and you really need to make sure that you can handle and commit to that schedule. Are you willing to relocate? Well, of course you are. If you're auditioning for the team and you're out of town, you have to be willing to relocate. You obviously have to have dependable transportation because you've got to be able to get yourself to where you need to go. If you don't have dependable transportation, you need to be prepared to explain to them how you're going to get to games, promotions, and practices on time. The next one, be honest about this. What are your other obligations that could interfere? So if you have a pretty demanding job, you need to let them know that, I have a demanding job. However, before I started this audition process, I spoke to my boss and we discussed alternate schedule arrangements for me on game days and practice evenings. So make sure that you have thought through some of this before your interview. Are you willing to change your look? Your answer needs to be yes, of course. Mainly because you know that anything that they would recommend to you would be in the best interest of you as well. And then are you willing to be a part of the promo team? Now, ultimately, we all know that if we are auditioning for the dance team, that our ultimate goal is to be a member of that dance team. However, it would be wise of you to say yes, that you're willing to be a member of the promotion team, because it is a wonderful step in the door. It's a great way to get acclimated with the team, kind of get your foot in the door, make a great impression, show them that you're dedicated, prove to them that you can be a great ambassador. So then next year you can work on whatever it is that you need to work on that didn't get you on that dance team to make sure that you make the dance team the following year. So here are some just team type, organization type questions you need to be able to address. Who is our owner? Who's our head coach? How did our football or basketball or hockey team do last year? What was our record? What can our team do better this year compared to last season? So do your research on this. There's so much information out there on ranking. So for example, for the NFL, they rank the offense and they rank the defense. So let's say the team was ranked number 2 in offense, but dead last in defense. Then your answer could be, that we really need to work on our defensive tactics. And that because we were ranked last year pretty low on the defensive lineup, that we really need to focus our attention there. So really make sure that you think through some of these questions so that you can come across as, and wow the judges with your responses. What do you know about our team? Wikipedia is an amazing source of information. It goes through so much of the history all the way up to the current standing of every single team out there. Who is your all-time favorite player? For me, for the Redskins, it would definitely be, I'm thinking either Joe Theismann or Darrell Green. There's so many, all-time greats for NFL teams and for NBA teams. Larry Bird, you just need Michael Jordan. So really think about and do your research on this if you don't happen to have an all-time favorite player. Who are your 2 favorite players on the current team and why? Or they might just ask, who are your favorite players on the current team? Make sure that you listen to how many they're asking. If they ask for multiple, you need to make sure that you say multiple and give a good reason why. And try not to pick the person that everyone else will pick. Remember again that this whole interview process is showing that you're unique and that you're different. And you want to stand out. So you don't want to pick the player that everyone is going to pick. How many times have we gone to the Super Bowl? So again, make sure you know the history, and it might be a good idea to know the years in which the team went to the Super Bowl and if they actually won. So they could ask, how many times did we go? And then how many times did we actually win? How many times were we victorious? So here are some scenario-based questions. If you are at an appearance or game and a drunk fan won't leave you alone, what would you do? So in this scenario, you would, obviously make sure that you know whatever the policies and procedures are of the dance team, and you're going to follow those. If for some reason the dance team doesn't have specific policy or procedure, then what you would do is basically try to laugh off the scenario or the situation, tell the fan, it's been so nice talking to you, but I need to head on over here and talk to my coach for a second. I hope you really enjoy the rest of your day, something like that. And then you just need to kind of politely excuse yourself and remove yourself from the situation. If a teammate is breaking rules, how would you handle it? So this is a very touchy situation here. So obviously you want to be a team player, but the person asking you this question is probably going to be the coach or director or maybe even management of the team. So in this situation, it would probably be smart to first go to your captain and talk to your captain about the situation, and then maybe go to the coach and talk to the coach about it. If you become a dancer on our team, but your job required additional travel, what steps would you take? Very difficult question, because obviously your job is extremely important to you. It's the main source of income probably for you. So in this scenario, I would probably talk to my boss to see if there's any way that the travel could be organized or arranged around my practice or game schedule, and really try to work through a plan with my boss, or see if it was possible for maybe me to be taken off of that particular project that required travel and be put on projects with travel during the off season. If you were a judge, what is the number one most important aspect you would look for? So obviously I cannot give you the answer to this question, but for me personally, it would probably be more of those internal attributes that I would look for, obviously with the understanding that the person needs to be extremely well-rounded. So, OMG, I don't know. I don't know the answer. What do I do? First of all, try not to say, I don't know. So try to stay away from that. And instead, maybe you can phrase it similar to this. I'm very sorry, but I'm not 100% certain about the answer to that question. Or you could say, unfortunately, I'm not informed enough about that issue to provide a good answer. Or you could say, you know what, that is a very interesting question. However, I need to go gather more information, do a little bit more research about the topic before I feel comfortable providing an answer. I will need to research that a little further in order to provide an accurate answer. So you basically are telling them that you don't know, but you might try to laugh it off a little bit, put another little twist on the response instead of just saying, I don't know. So as you prepare, so going back to our PREP process, you want to make sure that you study your top 9 list. So remember, we went over that at the start of this session when you were trying to create your introduction speech. You want to think about those 3 unique attributes, characteristics, or experiences. The 3 things that you have accomplished in your professional or academic life, and then your 3 most important personal accomplishments. So that makes your top 9 list. And as you're kind of thinking through those, you want to study them, because with any scenario or any question that comes up, you might be able to pull 1 or 2 of these most unique, most impressive accomplishments or attributes and weave those into one of your responses. So make sure that you are very familiar with your top 9 list. Jot down and make sure you know how your personal and professional attributes are in alignment with what the organization says is important to them. So again, that's why that research is so important. Also, don't try to memorize responses to questions. I definitely feel like your intro speech pretty much needs to be rehearsed and memorized, but you don't want it to sound rehearsed. You really want it to come across very natural. So when you're practicing this in front of someone, ask them, okay, did that sound like I memorized it? Did that sound rehearsed? And just make sure that it doesn't come across very scripted. Definitely for the answers to questions, you want to make sure that you kind of have a general idea of how you're going to respond, but don't put that added pressure or stress on yourself to memorize it. Here's something that I pretty much live by and tell all of our clients. Those that are most prepared are most successful. However, success is not measured by how far you get in the audition process, but how you feel after the process is over. So I just want to reiterate that you may not make it past the audition round as far as interviews goes. You may not make it on the team. But that's not what's important. It really is about how you feel after the process. And if you are very well prepared and you've given 110% and you've done everything that you could possibly do, then you should walk away feeling great about that experience, knowing that you gave 110%. And then from that experience, you just need to think about, what could I do better next year? And then you start focusing on those opportunities for improvement. So at the end of all of our sessions, I pretty much like to keep it simple and give you a kiss. So for the interview process or the speech or the introduction process, you want to be poised, you want to be polished, and you want to be prepared. So you want to go through the prep process of planning, reacting, executing, and then performing. You want to prove that you would be a great ambassador for the team, that you deserve to be on that team and you can contribute to the team in a very positive way. You want to make sure that you align your answers with the organization and what's important to the organization. You also have to make sure that you're punctual, that you're on time, because that in and of itself just sets a very bad tone. You want to show all of you, but you want to show your best you during the interview process. So that, again, is where those top 9 attributes will come into play. You really want to make sure that you're able to figure out a way to incorporate those items in your responses, if at all possible. You ultimately want to be you. So again, no fibbing. You got to be truthful. And of course, you want to smile and have fun throughout this entire process. If you smile and you have fun and you're feeling great inside, that is going to come across on the outside during your interview process, and it's going to show the judges that you deserve to shine on the sidelines. So with that being said, I would like to say good luck to you. We wish you all of the best. We are obviously here for you. If you have any questions whatsoever, just let us know. You can obviously connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Find us at sidelineprep.com, and then you can email us at info@sidelineprep.com as well. I'm Janine, and it has been great sharing with you over this past hour or so. I'm signing off for Sideline Prep and all of our Sideline Prep coaches, wishing you success in all that you do. Make it a great day.